This is your City Council Roundup, a recap of what's happening at City Hall with John Ongaro. The views expressed in this program are solely of those of the host and not necessarily those of the radio station or its partners.
Lots to uncover from last night's meeting, and I'll warn you in advance that one will make you shake your head a little bit. It was another late start to the night last night. At 7:40, councillors finally showed up at a closed session with a full meeting and a number of important topics. Because of time, of course, we're going to get to the two standouts of the night, but it's important information that was delivered last night about the Thunder Bay Land Needs housing strategy that explained we need another 800 houses or so in the next year to accommodate the shortages that we have, and over 8,000 in the next 20 years, which is a lot. There is much work to do, and council and administration will have some hard work ahead of them. Last night, also, there was a deputation from cyclists regarding the active transportation strategy and the Carrick Street Bridge. You've heard about this for a number of years. It's a pedestrian/cycling bridge over the McIntyre River or the Nebing River or the floodway, call it what you'd like, right next to Memorial Avenue by the CLE. That council has kicked down the road a number of years. It's a $3 million bridge for cyclists who find the Memorial Avenue near the mall is too busy for them, and the other routes that are around there to go north to south are too far away. So last night, 34 people rode their bikes to council last night from Waverly Park to make a deputation to council and ask them to start making active transportation infrastructure a priority. The 2023 budget had the bridge in it. It was bypassed. It was pushed to the side and changed to 2026. The presentation continued from the deputants talking about how cycling helps your brain. It's biking for brain health. And the deputants had the suggestion that the active transportation is not a priority to City Council. Well, one just needs to travel down Victoria Avenue at any time, 7 days a week, to see how busy those bike lanes are, to understand how much of a priority they are. That was a major priority. We went from 4 lanes to 2 on Victoria Avenue. The bike lanes are untouched. And I say that with experience because I'm on that route up to 6 times a day. I have never once in my time traveling 6 times a day down Victoria Avenue between Edward Street and Miles to ever find a cyclist in any of those lanes. It has been a priority for council. The active transportation routes and the paths and the trails that are everywhere have been a big priority. They've cost us a lot of money. There are hundreds of kilometers of them. This bridge is $3 million. And here we are again with a passionate community group of 34 cyclists asking the city to build them something worth $3 million. And we'll see if it makes it to the budget in 2025. But there's more to this story. Remember this space, $3 million bridge. Before we get to the turf facility, the highlight of the night came from Councillor Shelby Chung, who during a motion from administration for some changes with the bylaws regarding cemeteries, explained while chuckling that we're missing an opportunity for money. We're leaving money on the table, she said. Where are we leaving money on the table? Quote, we're leaving money on the table, not allowing pets to be buried with us in the cemetery. Think about that for a second. I love my dog. I've loved my other dogs. I love my pets. Most of the time, we outlive them. Councillor Chung is suggesting that the cemetery should change their rules to allow pets to be buried with us in the local cemeteries. So she asked for a report from administration because they have nothing else to do to look into this option, and ended it with, my cat thanks you. It was seconded by Councillor Atrini, and we'll see what happens when the report comes back in October, because we're leaving money on the table, not letting people to be buried with their cats. Interesting. Let's get to now the big highlight of the night. There were 2 parts to this. First, a deputation from Shane Judge. You may know Shane as a former candidate for mayor and otherwise, an outspoken person in the community, a former exceptional CBC broadcaster who delivered what, in a word, was an epic deputation. What's interesting about deputations is they're highly timed, and the chair will often interrupt the deputants, warning them of how much time they had. Well, as a radio guy, I can tell you that when radio guys are given a challenge to do something in 10 minutes, they will do it in 9 minutes and 59 seconds. And that's exactly what Shane Judge did last night. Even with his 15-second warning from the chair, he did not miss a beat. His deputation uncovered all kinds of things about the turf facility and how we can't afford it, the missed opportunities with partnerships, and so on. He also did several minutes explaining to the councillors and to you, the community, I'm telling you, it's worth a watch, about what happened years ago, 10 to be exact, when the city of Thunder Bay sold municipal golf course to a private investor to make a golf resort that never happened. That private investor paid far below market value for that, and the property still stands empty. He attained all of this information through Freedom of Information. It's a way to apply for, well, tell us what your secrets are, and he got it. Go back to that meeting last night and watch that deputation. That led to Norm Gale explaining that administration has given many options, especially for partnership, to Mr. Judge's point, and we've done what you've told us to do. If we had a nickel for every time City Manager Norm Gale has said, we do what you tell us to do, we'd have a turf facility. Administration follows the decisions of council, which they did. They brought them a recommendation that they rejected 13-0 with private investors. It was our best professional advice, he said. 2 partnerships expressions of interest were looking for partners to gauge the private sector interest about being a partner, in one of them being Fort William Stadium, by putting a bubble over the stadium that's there now, and councillor chose not to look into it. Mr. Gale said, you have decided to take a steel-framed structure, which he's right. We made a professional recommendation in order to achieve the project that you have chose in your budget and you have set. In essence, what City Manager Gale was saying is, we're here because you told us to be here. Then the discussion began with Councillor Hamilton explaining that RFPs could have included proposed partnerships, but we never asked for it. Administration went on to say that we're going to continue to look for government funding. We're 7 or 8 years into this project. We haven't got a nickel or even a glimpse at a nickel from any other partners. And Councillor Bentz went on to say we're the ones steering the ship. Administration just follows our requests. Here we are now with a $52 million facility in front of them. The council meeting went on. There were other topics, but it was the city council meeting at the end where the decision needed to be made. That started at 11:18 p.m. I don't know about you, but I don't think straight after 11 o'clock. Neither do city councilors, for that matter. Councillor Ben started it with removing the turf facility from the minutes of approval so that we can vote on it and discuss it separately. That's what they did. Then Councillor Albert Aiello spoke up. He was not at the meeting last Monday night. I will say this morning. Councillor Aiello, thank you. I know that you are a strong, strong supporter of this facility, but your words last night were exceptional. Good for you for sticking your neck out, sir. He asked for the $32 million cap last year. It changed to 38. He's concerned about the rising costs and citizens not being comfortable with it. You think? The outcry to this radio station in the last week has been unbelievable. The amount of people that had no idea that this was about to happen is staggering. Councillor Aiello mentioned that we haven't given the public enough time to let this set in. He also added that there is a very expensive price tag to operating this building, 12 full-time equivalents, over $1 million in staffing. And the last point that he made was an important one. He said that the new city manager, who, by the way, starts on June 17th, will not have a chance to look at this, and it will be dropping a $52 million facility in his lap for him to manage. And it's not fair to somebody at that position to be able to make decisions or help guide the process for someone that new. He's absolutely right. The discussion went on with Councillor Agarwal agreeing with the city manager portion of this, that it needs to involve the new city manager. She also pointed out that city councillors have ward meetings and public meetings this month. Actually, 8 of them. 8 of the 13 have ward meetings this month. And they'll tell us what we think. They'll tell the councillors, we agree with the project, but not the money. That then led to another, I'm going to call it an outburst from Councillor Trevor Gertuga, who really gets upset when we mention $52 million as the price tag because he argues that the debenture costs are against it and we're just doing it for effect. No, sir, we're not. If the building is 42.7 and it costs $9.7 million to borrow the money, the price tag is $52 million, whether you like it or not. This is not spinning, and we're not kidding the community as he suggested last night. Those are the facts. Then it came down to Councillor Mark Bentz, who on this program yesterday explained that he sent a letter to the citizens and to the rest of the council explaining that maybe this is a time to just take a breath, that maybe we should look at a dome facility. Maybe we should just wait because the public outcry has been significant. So what Councillor Bentz did last night is put forward a motion to move the ratification of the indoor turf facility to the next city council meeting, which is June 24th. 2 weeks, a little more than 2 weeks. The intent is not to stall, but to give the community the opportunity for their voices to be heard over the next 2 weeks, with 8 councillors having meetings for the public. It is exactly why we voted these people in, to listen to constituents. All Councillor Bentz was doing was asking for a 2-week delay. He even went to the city clerk, who explained that there'd be little impact in the project, delaying until June 24th. There will be no impact, says administration, if we waited a couple of weeks. All Councillor Bentz was asking for was 2 more weeks for the city to have their voices heard. One councillor suggested last night that the city has had plenty of time to have their voices heard, and they didn't. And unscientific polls on other websites that explain that 80% of the population says yes to a building and no to the price tag don't matter at this stage. She went on to say that they had their chance, and here we are. This is the same councillor that thought bearing pets with you is a good idea. You understand the significance of this decision and the arguments of these people. The referral was to June 24th, and the referral failed 10-3, with the mayor, Councillor Agarwal, Councillor Aiello, and Mark Bentz saying yes. Sorry, 9-4. The rest said no. Then it was on to the ratification. You know how this goes. There are 13 councillors, a majority rules, and away we go. The votes came in. Councillor Bentz asked for a recorded vote so that you can know who said yes to $52 million. I will tell you that only 3 of them said no. Councillor Bentz, Councillor Aiello, and Councillor Agarwal. The rest, including the mayor, said go for it. $52 million is now on the books, and a request for proposals is in front of council's administration to decide who's going to build this $52 million building. Those councillors that said yes, in my opinion, are now on the hook for it. I guarantee you this. If this was an election year, that vote would have been different. But those councillors and the mayor who are safe for the next 3 years, who pretty much said that your voice doesn't matter over the next couple of weeks, and that just because you were shell-shocked with the price that came out in the last month, you had your chance. But let's remind council that we also were snowed by the $17 million building that Soccer Northwest proposed that started this disaster. That $17 million building that this council said yes to in unanimous fashion turned into $53 million. That's a big difference. And the community is shell-shocked. And you are responsible for voting the way your constituents feel you should. I will say this again, probably for the 50th time. I'm not against building a building. I'm against the price tag. Last night, 10 of your councillors don't care what you think. They're going to build it anyway. They're all very lucky this is not an election year, because that vote would be very different. The next decision now is the acceptance of the RFP, where contractors will come forward with their ideas and their design build options for this $52 million building. This $52 million steel structure that's not nearly as pretty or nearly as functional as the one that this council approved at Chapels Park for $20 million less. Here's hoping that in the next couple of weeks, the number of public ward meetings that are being had will have many of you showing up, stepping up, and telling the councillors what you think. Unfortunately, as it was explained last night, they actually don't care. The next meeting, June 24th.